about food allergies. So food allergies were something that I didn't really have a lot of exposure with or really understand until I was diagnosed with alpha-gal. Growing up, I didn't know anybody who had a food allergy, and it hasn't really been until my adult life that I've been more aware of things like celiac and dairy intolerance and different food allergies and intolerances. So about 5 months ago, I was diagnosed with a food allergy that's called alpha-gal. It's something that is transmitted by tick bites. So I think probably around last summer, I got a tick bite that I think was my initial time of infection. But for 6 months after that, I was sick often and didn't really know why. And it wasn't until I couldn't remember what it was like to not feel bad that I realized that I had a big problem. So I went to my doctor and went through several rounds of different tests, blood tests, allergy tests. They checked my levels and found that everything was fine, but they noticed in my blood test that I had an allergy to red meat. And the test they did was for pork, lamb, and beef. So from then, I had the diagnosis of alpha-gal, and I started to do research, and it turns out that even though it's a fairly common allergy, there isn't a whole lot known about it. And in fact, it's estimated that there are millions of people who have alpha-gal and have no idea. It's pretty tricky to diagnose because it can happen whenever. So someone like me who never had a problem with any foods before, all of a sudden, one day I woke up and eating red meat made me sick. Also, people with alpha-gal have different symptoms. So some people just need to stay away from red meat. Some people are allergic to dairy as well. Some people are affected by gelatin. And there's even varying levels of severity. So thankfully, my allergy isn't very severe, but there are people with the same allergy that have to have an EpiPen because it causes an anaphylactic reaction when they are exposed. Another tricky thing about diagnosis is that the symptoms can vary. They're different for every person and for every exposure, and it can take up to 4 hours or even until when you go to bed to have symptoms with alpha-gal. So right after I was diagnosed, my first step was researching and figuring out what I needed to avoid. I spent a lot of time reading food labels and trying to figure out different foods that had dairy and mammal product ingredients. And it turns out that dairy is actually in a lot of things that you wouldn't even expect. Any kind of sauce or thickening agent typically has dairy, things like gravies, a lot of condiments like ranch, even things like tortilla chips. If you have a specially seasoned chip, oftentimes they use dairy as one of their flavor agents. So I had to really be careful and read every single label before I ate anything. It really has impacted the food that I buy for myself. Thankfully, I like to cook, and so in the past several months, I pretty much only feel comfortable eating something that I have made myself. Something that's really difficult is eating at restaurants. A lot of local places don't actually have an allergy menu posted on their website, so it's kind of a risk walking into a place, checking out the menu, talking with the waiter, and trying to decide if there's anything that's safe for me to eat. A lot of places like food chains like Which Wich and Subway, you can look up their website online. And on their website, they have an allergy menu, but there's a disclaimer that if there's any mistake or if you get cross-contaminated food on accident, that they can't be held responsible. So I've started to think a lot about both the ingredients in food and also how food is prepared. Something as simple as going to Subway and noticing that the knife that's used to cut my sandwich wasn't cleaned before it was cutting the sandwich before mine, and I know that small enough contamination could be enough to make me sick the next day. So having a food allergy has really challenged my ability to enjoy food that I haven't made myself. So something as simple as going out to eat and making sure that I get what I ordered. If there's a mistake on my order, or if I think I've really clearly communicated with the waiter or waitress exactly what I need. I've told them I have a food allergy, that I can't have dairy, that I need chicken instead of beef. And then when they bring back my food and there's been a mistake on accident, it creates a really uncomfortable situation to have to send food back, or even to hope that they know how to prepare food without cross-contaminating things. It causes me to have to put a lot of faith and trust in restaurants and people who are cooking, and hoping that they're actually following allergy guidelines, actually cleaning their equipment effectively, that they're using gloves, that they're not cutting my chicken on the same cutting board that beef has been cut on. It makes it really challenging to enjoy going out to eat or getting fast food. And I'm kind of at the point that if I haven't made it myself, or if I didn't actually see it be made, that I don't really feel good about eating things. I don't want to put myself in a situation where I have to take a risk. So that causes me to have to be extra prepared. Anytime there's a situation like a potluck, or people are bringing food, people who don't have food allergies don't understand that I'm not trying to be rude by not eating their food, but that I really can't, and that it will make me really sick. So it makes me feel very awkward, even in family gatherings, to not be able to eat what is offered, or even to bring my own food, or even to eat before. It has made something as simple as eating a meal, it's caused me to have to really think, and it's difficult to not be anxious about that. It's hard to trust people that they're preparing their food in a way that's safe for me.